Hey, how y'all doing? So I decided to make one video where I'm going to answer how I feel about Black Superman, Black Captain America, Black Spider-Man, etc., etc. This is my response to all of that. So hopefully I won't need to make this more than once. So we're gonna start out as I usually like to start out when I'm doing some type of lecture or telling people how I feel about a thought exercise. Think about this. If we were to clone Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan, what do you think would happen? Please answer in the comment section. Pause the video 5 or 6 seconds. What do you think would happen if we were to clone Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson? The answer is nothing. We still would not have Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson because what makes a person is more than their genetics. What makes them is their experience. What makes the genuine Michael Jordan or the genuine Michael Jackson isn't their genetics. It is their genetics plus all of their life experiences. It was their upbringing, their trials and tribulations, their weaknesses and their strengths, their work ethic that made Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson who they are. Those things cannot be replicated. People are not replaceable. Let's take it to the next level. Michael Jackson, for instance, had several siblings, all of whom had similar genetics to him. All of them grew up in the same household, had similar experiences, but none of them had his work ethic or his talent or his creativity or his success or his values. People are not replaceable. Every person is a one of a kind being. That includes the fictional ones. Every person's experiences make them who they are. No two people are alike, twins even. While they may have the same likes and dislikes, they may be the same size, they may have the same genetics, they still make different decisions because they are different people. So this goes into our cultural significance. We're told often by certain people that race and gender are social constructs. So therefore, when you race swap or gender swap a character, you're changing the cultural significance of that character. Therefore, you are changing that character. That character is not the same person. We are more than our biology, but we are told that our biology, our race or our gender, is how we interact with the world, right? So that means a different race or a different gender would react with the world differently. And having different reactions with the world creates different experiences. Therefore, changing the race of Superman or Captain America means that you've changed fundamentally the character. Now, with that being said, when you change a character, you change their cultural significance. In order for something to be culturally significant, it has to resonate with a culture. It has to resonate with a specific time, a specific place, a specific area, a specific ethnicity, and a specific gender, etc. Right? All of the little minutia of what made you who you are. When you create something that is of cultural significance, it includes all of those little tidbits. Give you some examples. Superman. I've heard about this whole Black Superman thing. I don't think nothing of it. Why? Superman as a character was born and is created. Not only is he an alien, but he was raised. It's a nature versus nurture argument, right? So is Superman his nature, which is Kryptonian, or is he what he is made through being raised by rural people in early 19th century Kansas? Superman was created in the 1930s. That would be like the Kents, Ma and Pa Kent would be, late to 1800s, early 1900s adults in rural Kansas, right? You cannot replicate that society. You just cannot replicate that society. Captain America, Steve Rogers, I've heard about Falcon being Captain America. Captain America represents being born and raised in Brooklyn. He is a child of Irish immigrants, specifically of adults being born in the early to mid 1920s. So Captain America would have to have been born in some place in the early 19th century in order for him to fight in World War II. He represents a specific time and a specific place and a specific ethnicity, a specific set of people. Including in that is he is the son of immigrants. He's also have faced discrimination of some kind and hatred because due to the anti-Irish sentiment of the time and that specific place, That is what Captain America, that's where he comes from. His values, everything that he knows, his experiences, everything that he learned how to treat others, all of that comes from his unique experience as being an Irish immigrant, or the son of Irish immigrants in New York City. Now, Superman and Captain America are great uh, examples because you have small town Kansas in Superman, big city New York in Captain America, but they're both aspirational heroes. Now let's do something that's a little bit more extreme. Thor, right? Thor represents is Thor is a Norse god. He takes on the values and the characteristics of a Norse society. Thor is not a 21st century hero. He is not a 19th century hero, right? He is an old hero. He represents a Norse society. When Marvel decided to do something slick and started to make Thor a woman, fundamentally changed the character, people were out. I mean, it's ridiculous. For starters, a Norse society probably would never have a female warrior god. So it doesn't resonate within that culture. Whether it was financially successful or not, it doesn't fit the culture. It is an anachronism. Okay. Now, when you talk about uh, cultural significance, you have to understand that sometimes when people are taking things from past cultures, there are problematic things that are within those cultures. For instance, they may not have a female warrior god, right? So that means you have to make one whole cloth, right? And she has to take on some of the characteristics of a more masculine hero. Or you may take a character that is in sometimes positioned as being a hero, and sometimes they are a villain, or sometimes they are a heroic character who do things that are horrible. For instance, there are Greek gods who commit rape. There are different things like that. Or either it's force or rape by deception. And those kind of things become problematic, and therefore you have to get rid of it. And when you do that, you have fundamentally changed the cultural significance of that character. So what we'll get is usually they'll say that people need to have heroes that look like them. They'll go with the representation argument, and I'll have to say, okay, let's do the breakdown of that. What if I was to make a character that looked like me, represented me? What would be the time, place, economics, etc. of that situation? Well, I am a late 30s black man born and raised in Detroit. With the exception of about 8 or 9 months, I have lived my entire life in the city of Detroit. So that means that the hero would be someone born within the late 80s or 90s, or have those experiences, would be raised in a big city with big city values and big city visions of the world. They would be economically most likely poor or lower middle class, and they would have athletic heroes. Like for me, it was Isaiah Thomas or Barry Sanders. The gender, because my gender is male, they will more likely be male. If they were female, it'll be different. But what would their experiences be? Okay, I could guess the experiences of most people within my age group to about 60 to 80%. Right? I could pretty much guess that you had a run in with these types of people, but also in doing so, but let's back up a little bit. Specifically, Detroit is one of those cities where it's so big that there is more than one set of values and more than one set of cultures. Detroit has multiple different cultures within it. Not just because there are strips of the city that are, homosexual dominated in nature, but also there's different value systems on the east side and the west side of Detroit. There's also pockets of the city where white people live. The city is gigantic and legitimately diverse. It borders a mostly Muslim city in Hamtramck and a mostly Muslim city in Dearborn, even though both of those cities are mostly white. You still have, high Muslim populations. There are also parts of Detroit that are heavily Hispanic. So you're talking about a very diverse city, legitimately diverse, that many people will have multiple different languages. There are either some people in the area who speak Polish, right? So I'm being very specific when I say Detroit, east side of Detroit, 80s, 90s America, the values and the things that came out of that area. Because there's the moment I go 10 miles in one direction, I go into another city where they believe something completely different. I'm not really representing the entire general area. I'm talking specifically about me. I'm looking in the mirror and telling people my story and exaggerating it. That is very, that is sort of what we would call it narcissistic in a way. But in when it comes to humans, there are grand narratives. There are human universals, things that we all have to deal with. We all want safety. We all want peace. We all want security. We deal with success. We deal with stress. We deal with temptation. We falter. We fall down. We deal with evil. We deal with parents. We deal with the government. We deal with religion. We have values. We have beliefs, right? We have all of those things. So, in telling that story, even though I'm looking in the mirror and just saying what I believe, there's going to be a lot of people who understand what I'm saying because there's going to be people who are similar experiences. They're not going to be the same person I am, but they're going to be similar enough. And that is what's going to create the cultural significance. Is I'm going to be able to say, hey, this is where I was born, raised. This is what I believed when I was a kid. This is what I believed as an adult. This is what I grew from. This is what I dealt with. And people are going to be like, yeah, I see that. I agree with that. I understand that. That represents kind of, to a degree, me. Am I expecting some 15-year-old white girl in Mississippi to resonate with my story? No. And part of the problem is just being in Mississippi, even if she was a black man of the exact same age with the exact same birthday, she's going to be a completely different person. So the idea that you want a story that represents you, basically you just want your story bounced back to you, right? But not everybody wants that. Some people just want something that is a grand narrative that represents the character, the country or the world or something to that effect, right? Captain America is supposed to represent the United States. So getting super granular with Captain America isn't going to do you any good, because then that's when things get divisive. When Captain America has to deal with, racial issues instead of generic discrimination, right? That's the difference. Discrimination, anybody can face discrimination. When you talk specifically about racial discrimination, then Captain America's never dealt with that. How does he deal with that? He shouldn't even have to deal with that. And if you are a competent story writer, you wouldn't have Captain America deal with racial discrimination because he doesn't know anything about being discriminated against based on race. Now, he knows about discrimination. He could talk about discrimination and just generalize it, which sometimes works. But most of the time, people want to talk about racial discrimination. They want to talk specifically about racial discrimination. So let's take it to the next level. I would argue that the desire to race and gender swap characters is a subconscious belief that the area, that the time, and that your values do not appropriately create heroes. Meaning that you can't take what you believe and make a hero out of it. Instead, you have to take what somebody else believes and make a hero out of it. I believe that the desire to race and gender swap heroes is actually just a refusal to pay people who have already done it. It is easier to sell to black people than to pay them. There have already been people who have done this whole thing about making very interesting black characters and black heroes, interesting female characters and female heroes, gay ones, etc. It is hard to find those people because that means you have to actually sit and read what they did, follow their media, follow what they do. And there's a huge chance that they won't believe what you believe, right? That, their views on the grand narratives of the world are different from yours. So there are millions of black creators that are ignored because Superman is black, right? And don't let anybody tell you that they truly believe this stuff. DC Comics has the license to Milestone, which was created by Dwayne McDuffie. It means they have access to Static Shock, Icon, Hardware, all of those characters. They do not reprint that material. Why? Because they will have to pay some people to do it. They would rather create Black Superman, because then they create and own the intellectual property of Black Superman, than actually paying Dwayne McDuffie to use Icon. Right? And that's really what it boils down to. It's easier to just pay black people. It's easier to sell to black people than it is to pay them. And then it's also when you say, well, they have black writers and black artists or whatever. And I say, well, it's almost always the same people, the same Ta-Nehisi Coates, Terry McMillan, type of people. That's why they all believe the same thing. That's why they almost all come from the same or similar type of background. You know, they all have the same friends. They've been running in the same circles forever. It's the same. They're the same people. They're basically as cookie cutter as it can be. Because when it comes to actually paying people who are creative and who are different and who are maybe telling authentic stories that speaks to a certain cultural narrative, that cultural narrative or those people might not be the kinds of people you want that you want to deal with. And I've seen some white writers say that, like, hey, Disney recently, there was a big story about Disney not wanting to create, Christian white heroes or Christian white characters on television anymore. So it's like, obviously, some guy who is a white Christian male wrote this story, pitched it to Disney, and was told, no, we're not doing that these days. So just imagine how maybe for years they've been doing that to black people. And then the folks who are complaining are the ones who are saying that. Maybe they're doing it to Asians right now. Maybe they're doing it to people from Brazil. Maybe they're doing it from people who are from Iceland. We don't know. But ultimately, these people who have been playing gatekeeper for years, they're continuing to play gatekeeper. They're continuing to play goalie. The reason why you're getting Black Superman is because they would rather make Superman black than pay somebody who has already done it and who may make a lot of money, but it's not nothing that they can control, right? They've learned, especially when you look at J.K. Rowling and how, the Harry Potter license, right? You have all these people now who hate J.K. Rowling, but you have to pay her in order to use Harry Potter. So what they choose to do is they're probably going to try to make knockoffs, and that's the way of getting around paying people for authentic stories that they created and authentic things that they created. Create a knockoff Black Superman, Black Captain America, because then you control the intellectual property, rather than actually paying somebody who has already done it or who embodies those values and who have already comes from these areas and has created these stories. So that's my idea of what's going on here. For starters, to reiterate, number one, you cannot replace an individual. Even if you were to clone them, you cannot replace them. You can't replace their experiences. Two, you have to have cultural significance, means you have to have a specific time, specific place, the specific beliefs. You can't replicate those things. You can only update them. You can't replicate it. Three, it's easier to just, flip your own IP and add it to the many branches of Superman and many branches of Captain America than it is to pay somebody who has done the work, done the research, looked up, African guys or Norwegian guys, Dutch guys or whatever, and created their own mythos. It's a lot easier to just say, oh, hey, we're going to turn Thor into a woman, instead of actually going out and finding female warrior gods to make comic books about, right? It just doesn't make sense. But it's a lot easier because you already control the intellectual property of Thor. So it's easier to do. And laziness is a huge thing about this. And it's cheap. It's a lot cheaper to say, hey, turn Thor into an androgynous Filipino with one leg than it is to say, because you at least control that aspect of Thor, than to say somebody who's written 2 or 3 books on or drawn comics or whatever and having to pay that person millions of dollars. You can pay somebody $500 to flip Thor to whatever you want Thor to be, rather than having to pay somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to license their property, right? So there's a lot of different reasons why this thing exists, not just because they're lazy, but also because they're lazy and entitled and selfish and narcissistic. There's a lot of different reasons why this stuff is happening. But this is my general idea about Black Captain America, Black Superman, Black Spider-Man, all that stuff. It's all whack. None of it's original. It's all meant to just crowd the marketplace and keep out new creators and new thoughts and new images. That's the entire point. They're not talking about representing anybody. It's all about selling to Black people, selling to women, selling to Asians, selling to Brazilians or whatever, Canadians or whatever, not actually wanting to pay them. Bottom line. I'll talk to you guys later.